When you handle 225 people, it's a different ballgame. Then you are not doing sales. Then you're only handling people. You're handling egos. You're handling visions. You're handling training. Getting those people set. Entrepreneurship is more like a firefighter. You douse one flame here. जब तक ये बुझाओ तब तक कहीं और आग लग जाती है. तब तक वो आग बुझाओ तब तक तीसरे में आग लग जाती है. In today's day and age, personal branding is important. I tell this in every session. जो दिखता है वो बिकता है. Or you go on the other side. Out of sight, out of mind is very easy. You move out of corporate, people will forget you. Be consistent. Be patient. Be authentic. And I think it works.
1000, 2000, 5000, whatever you can save, you should start saving in the early days of your life. Only then will you see the fruits later.
Eventually, if you intend to retire at some point of time, what is the corpus that you need? It's a back calculation from that. And then you keep calculating. It's like a cricket match. You know what's your target. You need to have your required run rate. Kitna chahiye. It's a very, very similar game.
Hello everyone and welcome to Happy Hour with FinCocktail. Today we have a marketing and sales expert with us. He's helped a lot of large corporations work on their strategy and plan on marketing and sales. He also is now an entrepreneur. He does a lot of corporate trainings and helps people build their personal brand. So let's figure out what this personal branding business is and why maybe you should consider doing it. Here's welcoming Sampark Sachdeva. Hello, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sayali. Oh, a real pleasure. I think we've had a conversation a lot of times, but finally glad to be here.
I know, finally this is happening.
Yes.
बहुत time से. So we met at a LinkedIn event and since then we've been in touch. So I'm really glad that we have been.
Finally.
I know.
Yeah.
So Sampark, let's dive into your journey. I'd love to know कि अभी we've ended up here through your entire journey. That was a small little snapshot. But tell us a little bit on how you ended up here. Your early inspiration, your early experiences that landed you here.
So I grew up in Jamshedpur, again, a small town, and totally influenced by the Tatas, etc.
Yeah.
Came to Bombay for my graduation. And when you come from a small town, everybody is like, "Okay, you done commerce? It's either MBA or CA." So I came to Bombay, jumped into CA because everybody said you're good in accounts. 2 months into it, I realized, this is not what I want to do all my life. I called back home and I said, I am dropping out. I did not even give an attempt. Maybe 4 months into the coaching itself, I said, no, this is not what I'm planning to do. And then while my BCom was on, etc., I started doing a lot of part-time jobs and I started exploring a lot of things. It was in my second year of college. I took up a part-time thing at Vijay Sales where I started selling TVs. So morning I used to go to college. Evening I used to go there and sell TVs. I think a few months that I did it. And that's where this whole knack of sales came in and said, okay, this is something that I'm liking. A customer walks in, you understand what he wants, you help him make that purchase, and then you see the person walking out very happy. I said, okay, this is something that I like. And I think that's where that decision of saying, okay, CA is now done and dusted. MBA is where I need to go. This is where I need to make a career in. And that's how the whole MBA thing came in to begin with. And then it was the traditional service corporate job part before that whole entrepreneurship thing came in. So we'll get to that. So yeah, that's how it started.
Nice. Very cool. Who would you say was your greatest inspiration when it came to all of this? Because for now, we've only reached your sales phase. So, तब तक कोई inspiration वगैरह था या it was just कि you enjoyed it personally. So you decided that, अच्छा, this is what I want to pursue.
See, again, when you grow up in a place like Jamshedpur, which is almost 90% Tatas, you are very, very heavily influenced by how they work. So you realize it's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of focus on education. There's a lot of focus on hustle. So you've never learned those shortcuts. You never learned कि इधर से निकल जाओ and etc. So I think that did, I would say, inspire me or form those values that I grew up with. Plus, I come from a fairly middle class family. Everybody's been in service, corporate. So you've seen the hard work. You've seen the daily grind. Yes, there was enough, but there was not abundant that you can overspend and you can you can call on those luxuries, etc. So you worked hard through and through. So चाहे वो marks हो, चाहे वो 10th हो, 12th हो, if you wanted to buy something,
Oh,
there was a
yeah.
lot of you've always grown with that thing of saying कि ठीक है, you have to work for it. And I
Bike.
think that's what
Nice.
put it up. Yeah.
Nice. So like bike चाहिए तो 10th में इतने marks आने चाहिए ऐसे.
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. I needed, and that time bikes se zyada, I used to have a kinetic Honda back then.
Oh.
And I was told that you will get, if you get 85%, and that
हाँ.
time 85 was decent, now though everything is 95. So I said 85 आएंगे तो मिलेगा.
हाँ.
And luckily in that, and you had that best 4, best 5 kind of a thing. And I just scraped through with 86. That was I think the biggest achievement that I get. So you've hit the nail on the head for that as well.
Nice. So your corporate journey, it involves a lot of brands like Asian Paints, Oyo, Ola.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit something about the corporate side. What did you learn from there? Because so many people talk about, the entrepreneurship side of things. I don't want to brush to directly that because I also know that me and Neti both have worked in the corporate space as well. And the reason why we are who we are today is because we learned a lot over there. We wouldn't be here if we didn't kind of, hustle through the corporate ladder for a bit. Could you tell us a little bit about your corporate experience and some things that you learned there?
So I passed out in 2010, and I think placements were 2009. Markets were still very bad. And I was very clear I didn't want to go into banks. So I became too selective when placements happened, and I ended up without a placement. So and again, the typical middle class, if you've gone into an MBA, if you don't come out with a job, there's a problem. So there was a batchmate of mine whose dad had a business. So 1 year I worked with them, and that business was into astrology. So for a year I sold astrology. So be it exhibitions, be it astrology software, etc. So again, that was a lot of learning. It was 1 year later that laterally then I entered Asian Paints. And the surprising thing was my whole interview in Asian Paints was, how in the world can you sell astrology?
Exactly.
So because that's such an enthralling kind of thing. And my customers were astrologers, not even the larger public as well. But then it was more of a B2B selling to astrologers.
What were you selling to the
So
astrologers?
it was softwares, all those yantras, all those books, and all those Rudraksh, etc.
B2B in astrology.
A lot of fun stuff. So, and I think that's what got me through Asian Paints. So that's the fun part of the start of my career.
Yeah.
I was with Asian Paints for 5 years, did various roles. So I handled retail sales. I was handling North Bengal, Sikkim, and Bhutan. So I've gone to every corner of that part of the country, going to dealers, traveling maybe 3 hours to meet one dealer, etc. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of experiences, a lot of rural markets. So while I was based in Siliguri, but the travel was length and breadth of that whole breadth. So that taught me a lot. Then I went into institutional sales. Then I did into services. So I traveled, and then the whole of East. So I was traveling across the East as well. And this was a traditional organization. And I can blindly say one of the best employers that anybody could work with. Then that whole startup thing, this was 2015. Startups were just coming in. Moved to Ola. Ola was establishing itself across. So 3 years with them, handled marketing there, handled Calcutta for a bit, handled the East market for a bit, handled all their tier 3 markets, all the 65 cities from Gaya, Aurangabad, Madurai, Ludhiana, etc. All those cities for a bit. And that was when I moved to Bombay. My wife had moved to Bombay. So I pulled some strings to move here as well. And this got me till 2018. And that's where I got the opportunity with Oyo. And I went back to sales. So a lot of people would say ki once you've gone into marketing, you don't come back. But I was getting a very big team to manage. When I moved back to Oyo, I grew the team to 225 people.
Oh, wow.
So that was the thing that I said, okay, this is something that I get, and I went back to there. So 3 very clear learnings from the organizations. I would say Asian Paints taught me systems, processes, going by the book, ethics, very, very strong. Then when I moved into startups, Ola taught me speed. When you go into the whole agility thing, execute, which in a larger organization, it's understandable, not possible. So I learned the speed there. And then when I went back to sales with Oyo, I learned man management. So one, I've handled teams throughout since Asian Paints, but then it's always been 5-10 member teams. But when you handle 225 people, it's a different ballgame. then you are not doing sales. Then you're only handling people. You're
Yeah.
handling egos. You're handling visions. You're handling training, getting those people set. So I think that systems, ethics, the agility, and the management all then combines together to get me to,
Wow.
I would say, this part
This
of
part.
the journey. So yeah, that was my corporate part of it.
Yeah, you're right. With like 225 people, it's yeah, sales तो वो लोग कर रहे हैं. आप तो बस उनकी थोड़ी बहुत मैनेजमेंट कर लो तो you are successful.
So if you're able to get those people aligned,
Yeah.
I always gave this example in my job that time that if you have a smaller team, it's like a small boat. It's
Yeah.
easy to turn around.
Yeah.
But when you are handling 225 people, it's like a cruise liner. You need to plan way ahead to that वो turn
Correct.
करना है to be able to make that turn. So I think if there is a target in December, I needed to start working in June, July, hiring, training, getting
Yeah.
people in place, etc. So yeah, a different ball game.
Completely different. So then how did this transition happen from this incredible career to an incredible journey of entrepreneurship?
So I think this started with LinkedIn,
Okay.
where I started writing in 2015, way before the whole personal branding, content creator, influencer kind of thing came in. I was
Question.
just doing it for the fun of it.
Okay.
So I started writing on it. And suddenly I realized people were resonating. So what I was writing about was experiences. Client के साथ ये हुआ, office में ये हुआ, team के साथ ये हुआ, and people started saying, "Oh, ये तो मेरे साथ भी होता है." Or this is something that I've related with. So that was the kick that came about. 2019, I won the LinkedIn Spotlight.
Yeah.
So there was Top Voice, there was Spotlight, there were 2 lists. Up to there's a lot more larger
So many.
part of it, but so there were 14 creators in that, good names like Ankur Warikoo and
Yeah.
Alok Kejriwal and etc. A lot of big names, and I felt okay, this is going different. I was just a corporate guy, and this worked well. So at that point, I started thinking, can this be looked at long term? But again, that thought was just there. Maybe 4 years, 5 years down the line. Again, I come from a service background. I might never have had the guts to even do it. बोलने में बहुत अच्छा लगता है कि मैं अपना करूंगा, लेकिन I don't think I might have done it. 2020 came in.
Are.
I had just moved into a new role in corporate events,
Okay.
and I was still with Oyo.
At Oyo.
So one, I was in hospitality. Second, I went into corporate events. That was January of 2020. Two of the industries that
Finished.
nosedived. So the moment the lockdown came in, I said, okay, now I think I am on
the back burner.
on the back burner for sure. So a lot of us went on unpaid leaves for 4 months that time. And I said, okay, I already had around 50,000 followers on LinkedIn. I said, see, network hai, I can always go back and look for a job. But at this time, when I reach out to someone, will that someone want to save his job or give me
a job.
something? So I said, okay, I have 4 months before they call me back. Why don't I experiment? So again, coming from the finance perspective, I sat with my wife Pooja. We sat down and said, how much money do we have liquid without even going into the corpus or savings, retirement fund, etc.? How much runway do we have? I said, we have 2 years with zero income. So I said,
that's a great runway, my friend.
So I said, I can experiment. 4 months mein nothing is going to go
Yeah.
wrong. So I did this for 4 months. At the end of 4 months, when we had the conversation back with the employer, they said, see, abhi bhi clarity nahi hai
Correct.
with the whole COVID thing. You can hang on for another 4 months, or you can put in the papers. I said, yeah, I don't think I'm going back. So I moved out. I said, I will give myself another 4 months. It worked. I said, I'll give myself another 4 months. It worked. And here I am 4 years into it.
Damn.
Not gone back. It has worked well. It opened my eyes into a altogether different world. And so unless something like a COVID or something drastically wrong happens, I'm here to stay. This side, I've enjoyed a very good run that side. I've enjoyed a very good run in the entrepreneurship space. A long way to go. So yeah, that's how the whole transition happened from corporate to entrepreneurship.
That's amazing. That's really amazing to see so many kind of entrepreneurs be born out of something which technically destroyed a lot of jobs and like sections of corporations for that time period. Right? Like COVID. Even FinCocktail technically was born in COVID. It's really inspirational. It's crazy. Now coming to my favorite part, entrepreneurship is a roller coaster, to say the least. I would say it's a daily roller coaster because
Absolutely.
you never know what is going to happen every single day. And I love asking everybody this question. What are the challenges that you face as an entrepreneur in your business right now?
See, as you scale up,
Mhm.
and I think a lot of people do ask me what was one mistake that you made. I think I hired too late. So
Too late.
for the first 2 years, I
Mhm.
kept struggling at it alone.
Mm.
Yes, because I had jumped out without a plan. I did not have a business model in place. I did not have that whole thought of how to do it. I was still figuring out. But I think the moment I hired and
Mm.
started building a team, where it suddenly blew up for in the larger scheme of things, because you as an entrepreneur, you always think you're the best. uh, okay, I've been on LinkedIn, I've been in the corporate,
Yeah.
I understand how to do it. But then it's a very cliche thing when they say ki even if the person is able to do 60%, it just adds more bandwidth to you. And I think that's what helped me. So one, building the team and then scaling it up, because every team member that you put in, you need to train, you need to retain, you need to keep their interest, longer term interest from a career perspective, growth perspective in mind. That's one part of it. Secondly, as you said, that it is a roller coaster. So be it getting clients, be it retaining clients. I say that entrepreneurship is more like a firefighter. You douse one flame here, जब तक ये बुझाओ तब तक
हाँ
कहीं
हाँ
और
तब
आग
तो
लग
कहीं
जाती
और
है,
आ
तब तक वो आग बुझाओ तब तक तीसरे पे आग लग जाती है. So I think that's the difficult
Yeah.
part of it. But again, I think that's
It's
also the
fun.
enjoyable part of
Yeah, it's fun.
bit, that you are always on that.
Yeah.
अब कहाँ, अब
Up.
what's next, what is
What
next.
next?
So
Where's the
so
next
you can't rest,
excitement?
you can't rest. But yeah, you when you say you are your own boss, it sounds good.
Mhm.
It's not as glamorous as it seems, but it is also good when you are your own boss, that you can do it your way. So
Yes,
if I'm sitting here having this conversation, I can dictate my day,
correct.
my weekday, my weekend, whichever way. And I think that's the good and the fun part of it as well.
Absolutely. So, the name of your company, Sampark Say Sampark, I absolutely love it. It was one of the first things that I saw on LinkedIn, and I fell in love with the concept. It's so simple, yet it completely kind of communicates what you're trying to say, and that kind of was an inspiration for me to start writing on LinkedIn also, honestly. And under Sampark Say Sampark, I believe you do corporate trainings, and you also have something called Brand You, which is the personal branding arm of it. So, under the personal branding arm, now personal branding has become increasingly more important in today's day and age. Number one, do you agree? Number two, why is that so? And number three, how can one establish their own personal brand in today's day and age?
Okay. Before answering that question, since you specifically mentioned Sampark Se Sampark, I'll tell you the story behind it.
Oh, yes, please.
So I did not create the name.
No.
It is again something I got from LinkedIn. So
Really?
this was 2019, where I had done a post,
Huh.
and one of the people who was commenting below it said, "You write very well. You should start using this hashtag." And I replied back saying, "किसी दिन बड़े हो गए तो use कर लेंगे." A third person comes back and says, "Stop underestimating yourself. Start using it." So it came out
I
as my
love it.
hashtag. I started using it. Uh, I never realized, and this was while I was still at Oyo. I remember walking into a sales meeting with VPs of one of the biggest
Mhm.
corporations in the country. And I think this was the deal closure. My team had set it up. I went there. He turned around and he said, "I recognize you. Sampark se Sampark from LinkedIn." And I said, "That was the brand recall."
Yeah.
And then when this whole entrepreneurship thing happened, I said, "ठीक है, 4 महीने के लिए है, यही नाम कर देते हैं." I never realized where it became my Insta handle, where it became my website, where it became my domain name, where it became my registered entity.
Yeah.
So there was no thought behind the name. Somebody randomly uh, suggested it and it stuck.
But it's great, right? Because it resonated with the people, which is where it kind of generated, where it came from. And because it resonated with the people, the brand recall is far more than what you could have created.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even today, a lot of people who maybe do recognize me when we meet us say, "I recognize you from the Sampark Summer." And this was during COVID as well, where the masks were still on. There were people who saw the logo on the t-shirt and said, "Okay, I know you from LinkedIn." So yeah, that's the
I
that's
like
the
it.
story behind the name. Now coming to the question that you asked, why is personal branding important? See, again, since I come from that whole corporate to entrepreneurship switch, anybody who's done that switch will know the moment you make this switch, there is a sudden drop that you face. From an income perspective, also from people picking up your phone any longer.
Oh, yeah.
So, because at that time I had the Asian Paints brand or the Ola brand or the Oyo brand, and a lot of people would pick up saying head of sales there or a marketing head, etc., whatever. But जब आप ये छोड़ते हो, those very same people stop responding. I think that's where a personal brand becomes very important. People need to know you as Sampark rather than what designation you held at the previous organization. And I think accidentally, because I was writing on LinkedIn, this drop for me was a smoother hit. And I learned it in hindsight, never doing it very consciously. But then I realized, okay, if I had not done it, and if this so-called safety net was not there, I would have had a much greater fall. I might have taken much more longer to start building it up back to where I wanted. And I said, yaar, mere se to ho gaya. But then people don't consciously do it. And I think that's where the whole brand new concept came in. When I moved out, I had never thought of this second part of it. I had moved out, I said, consulting karte hain, training karte hain. And I had already 50,000 followers on LinkedIn. So a lot of senior people started saying, mere ko bhi karna hai, how can I do it? So I would consult them one-on-one, which I still do. But at the end of those sessions, most of them came back and said, Sampark, I understand that personal branding important hai. I understand LinkedIn is good for me as a corporate professional or as an entrepreneur, but mere se hoga nahi. So now mere paas time hai, now I can write that much or whatever. So that's how this whole second vertical came in, where I started running LinkedIn, managing it for them, working in collaboration with senior professionals to running that bit there. So yeah, so that was the story. And in today's day and age, personal branding is important. I tell this in every session, jo dikhta hai, wo bikta hai. Nice. Or you go on the other side, out of sight, out of mind is very easy. You move out of corporate, people will forget you. And the biggest proof for me is that in 4 years, I have not done a cold call. I have not done an outreach. Everything has been inbound.
Wow.
And that's the power of personal branding. That's the power of LinkedIn. That's the power of content creation.
Brilliant. That's very well said and very well summarized, honestly. I was going to ask you, ki, how do you get your first client? But aapke to paas hi aa gaye log ki I don't know how to do it.
So I think, yeah, that's the exact thing that I try to replicate when now I run personal branding for people, that you need to get your clients inbound.
So as long as अच्छा product बनाओ, सामने से लोग आएंगे in terms of personal branding.
Absolutely.
So चलो ये तो पता चल गया कि personal branding करना important है. How does one go about creating their personal brand? If I don't come to a consultancy, if I'm not big, if I'm just maybe somebody who's working in a corporate or a small entrepreneur who's just starting out, how does one start this journey?
See, there are only 3 secrets to this whole thing of building a personal brand. Which platform is another question, but one, you need to be consistent. It does not happen overnight. It's not a virality game. Yes, there are a lot of people who spike, but then that's 1 in a million that does spike. For me, it's taken a good 8-9 years to get this. So one is consistency. Second is being patient. You can't just lose it saying kuch nahi ho raha, because a lot of people, be it the trainings that I do, be it the management that I do, you can't come back in 1 month and saying I've been creating content, nothing is happening. So it is a lot of that game. Again, but when you want to also stay consistent, it's a lot about being authentic. You cannot fake it. So because the moment you try faking it, कि मेरे को अपने आप को ऐसे पोर्ट्रे करना है, it cannot be a longer term game. क्योंकि आप 2 महीने फेक कर लोगे, 4 महीने फेक कर लोगे, 6 महीने फेक कर लोगे, you cannot go on and on. Only if you're authentic, only if you talk about your actual experiences coming from the heart is where you can sustain this over a longer period of time. So if you go through my content on LinkedIn, it's a lot about my stories with my boss, my team, my clients, my growing up years, my friends, etc. And since that comes, there's an actual story behind it. People relate to it because most people have had similar experiences. Everybody would have had that bad boss, or everybody would have had that client who troubles you a lot. Everybody would have had that one colleague who's not so fun to work with. So people relate, and the moment you make it relatable is where it sticks. So be consistent, be patient, be authentic, and I think it works. How do you build a personal brand? I think it's for each to his own. For me, LinkedIn is the platform. I've been struggling on Instagram. I would love to understand from you how to grow it. But so it's to each his own. आपको ट्विटर और एक्स चलता है, दैट्स ओके. यू वांट टू राइट अ बुक, दैट्स ओके. यू वांट टू डू sessions at conferences, that's okay. If YouTube is your thing, that's okay. If you want to maybe do something else, you want to do podcasts, that's okay. So end of the day, coming back to the part that I mentioned earlier, जो दिखता है वो बिकता है.
Nice.
So you need to keep being visible. You cannot just disappear from the market. I think if you keep knocking on people, and again that marketing background of mine, of that whole brand recall, keep building it up, it works. And how it works is that for me, even after coming into entrepreneurship, suddenly an old colleague of mine or an old super boss of mine who's not been in touch for 8-9 years suddenly reaches out saying, hi Sampark, I saw you doing this, I wanted to discuss something, or there's an opportunity, or can you help me with something. So people, even with whom you might not have spoken for years at end, remember who you are. So because again, you are so active on LinkedIn, there would people say, Arey, I saw that post of yours that you were traveling there. Oh, I also want to go. So end of the day, you notice that people are watching. They may or may not engage with it, but people are keeping a tab. And I think that's where it helps. It just helps being visible.
Nice. So, in terms of personal branding, what are a few trends that you see happening in the next, let's say, 4-5 years? Because what I have seen or heard, I don't necessarily believe it because I don't see it reflecting on my own personal LinkedIn. But a lot of people have said that, LinkedIn had this kind of wave of a lot of people being interested, etc. Now it's like kind of slowing down a little bit. Instagram also had its wave of infotainment in creators. Now there are too many creators, it seems, and now they're kind of indistinguishable from each other. And YouTube is to another monster only. I mean, I love it. It's very interesting, but it's difficult. Like you said that you struggled with Instagram. We struggled and we're still struggling with YouTube. So what do you see are a few trends that you think are going to kind of, surface over the next few years?
See, over these 8-9 years, having done over 2,500 posts on LinkedIn, one thing is very clear: content is king. It does not matter what trend comes in. It does not matter what goes out. It does not matter how many people are there. If your content is good, you will succeed. Again, there are a lot of posts, and again, you experiment as a creator. You experiment with repurposing. You experiment with different formats, etc. I have realized that a post, if it has worked 5 years back, and I put it again, it will still work. If it has not worked then, it will still not work. So I've tried that permutation combination a lot of times, and I said, अगर वो resonate तब किया है, वो आज करेगा ही करेगा. So it genuinely has to be content that resonates. Yes, that trend of saying you put something which is just humorous, sarcastic, negative, that's there. आज Instagram पे you have a lot of so-called cringe that you call, that works. But again, it is for each of us to decide what is your purpose to be there. Do you want to go viral, or do you want to build a personal brand?
Yeah.
So the cringe have a lot of following, but is that the kind of perception or the vibe you want to build around yourself?
Yeah.
If that is so, nothing wrong about it.
Fair enough.
You decide it. There are a lot of so-called big celebrities who run on this whole factor of saying, I just need to be visible.
Yeah.
That's okay. But for me, if I'm building a business around it, if I am expecting my trainings to get impacted with it, if I'm talking about building my whole agency or the account management kind of thing, and coming with the kind of experience that I have, I can't be talking about cringe. So you need to understand what's your direction. क्या मेरे को likes चाहिए, क्या मेरे को business चाहिए.
Correct.
So for me, that's the focus. So you will find my content being very targeted, or I would say a little more mature with my experience coming from all the years of experience that I come in. So I think that's where it is. Content is king. You need to know where you are headed.
Yeah.
At no point of time forget where you're going in. But yes, having said that, social media penetration has increased. Digital marketing presence has increased. Platform after platform is coming. It is becoming more important for you to be visible, to break away from the clutter. There are too many distractions. It's very easy for people to forget you. So you need to be there. You need to be out there. And whichever format, can be social media, can be any other way of building a personal brand, but वो करते रहना पड़ेगा.
Yeah. It gets tougher, right? Because there's so much out there, and then constantly to be visible in the sea of being visible, it gets tough. A little bit of an example comes to mind when you said, some celebrities, etc. Two specific people that I personally love in terms of how they've built their personal brand. First one is Ranveer Singh. He was very clear. He's like, I am unabashedly myself. The first brand he did was Durex. Recently, he did one more, I believe, men's sexual health
Right.
brand. And his content is cringe, but it's amazing. It's something that so many people, they laugh, but they are talking about it, right?
Absolutely.
He's achieving what he set out to. And the second celebrity it's a couple. I love their content. It's so cute. It's Ritesh and Janelia. Both of them together create so many reels. They are so stupidly funny, and they genuinely resonate so many times that both of them together, they have maintained their individual identities, but when they come together, they are a brand that a husband wife, and how kind of they fight with each other or take each other for
Right.
granted and like create comedy between them. It is absolutely true that whenever you want to build a personal brand, you have to find your own path, and once you find your own path, people will remember you for it.
Absolutely. So to take that example further, I loved when Ori spoke about relevance rule.
Oh yeah.
So you need to be understanding for yourself as a creator, what do you need to be relevant with,
Correct.
and what's your objective? Why are you doing this? If you're able to do that,
Yeah.
I think it's you've got
You're
it clear
there.
in the head. Yeah.
I love it. Great. So we've talked about content and how it resonates and your vast experience and everything. How, in your experience, or how has your experience in the corporate side, entrepreneurship side, all of that kind of shaped how you think about money?
See, I think the relationship with money goes long back.
Okay.
Again, when you've grown up in a middle
Yes.
class, you've never had that throw away money for anything that you wanted. And we discussed this earlier कि marks आएंगे तो ये मिलेगा.
Correct.
I also remember, if I go back, that I'd asked for a cycle once, and I was very clearly said कि all the things that you get from relatives, etc., you have to
उसको जमा
collect.
करो.
You will have to collect 50% of it. Once you collected 50% of it, my mom said, I will give you the remaining 50%, and then can you buy it? So that whole deferred kind of gratification
Correct.
kind of a thing. And then you work through the year to say, ki, acha, kaise karu? Can I do some small chores, etc., etc. I think that's where you started valuing money a lot more. And again, that also continued when I moved to Bombay for my graduation, started staying alone. I was given that monthly saying, ye itana hai, ab isme tum chalao. You want to party, you do that. You want to eat out, you do that. You want to have fun with friends, do that. But this is all you have. So I think day one, you learned, and I think that stuck with me. Even when I moved into the corporate, first salary, I knew I needed to start saving. And I think that's where that thing got engraved. And I think that has stuck through my corporate career, that has stuck through my entrepreneurship career. And I think, it's a good, I think it's a good relationship with money.
It's a great relationship, because so we struggle so many times to explain to a lot of young people who either are our audience or friends and family that they're like, abhi abhi to paisa, kamana chalu kiya hai, to let me splurge a bit, let me enjoy life. Arey, it's if that is your idea behind kind of making money, it's going to be your idea throughout. ऐसा नहीं है कि अच्छा मैं थोड़ा ज्यादा पैसा कमाऊंगा ना तब I will save. No, it doesn't work like that.
It never does. Yeah.
It's a percentage. Yes, 1000, 2000, 5000, whatever you can save, you should start saving in the early days of your life. Only then will you see the fruits later. I loved the concept of you talking about a runway, because whenever anybody tries to go into entrepreneurship, you and your wife kind of sat down and said that, hamara runway kitna hai. So what would you say to somebody who's, let's say, in their 20s or early 30s, who wants to go into entrepreneurship from a corporate career, and what should they look for? Like 3 things that they should be prepared with.
See, you'll have to be prepared for the uncertainty.
Yes.
Because when you jump into entrepreneurship, जो business plan में होता है, जो revenue model आपने बनाया होता है, will that work or not work is something you will only realize once you are out there.
Correct.
So you have to be ready for that uncertainty. Again, for me, if I look at this perspective, I come from a salaried background. मेरे को हमेशा, even today is 30 तारीख को मेरे पास पैसा होना चाहिए. So I cannot burn money.
Yeah.
So day one, I was very clear that it has to be in the green. I need to start building up my revenue at least till the time I reach my old
Correct.
salary. And I think for a long period of time, I was still stuck at that number. Even today, I will not splurge. I think that becomes ingrained from my a whole relationship with money as well.
Yeah.
When we spoke about day one savings, etc. जो मेरा पहला SIP है वो आज तक मैंने टच नहीं किया है.
See.
So and it is still deducting, it is still cutting. So I think
So
I've
happy.
I've kept those two things aside. So I think you have to be ready with that uncertainty. You have to make sure that you take out for yourself. You keep you can't do it without money because you have to sustain yourself. You might be young, you might not have responsibilities today, but you
आगे जाके
you will have a
होगा.
family soon, or even if you do have a family or responsibilities, वो cater करना बहुत जरूरी है. And I think that is something a lot of people go wrong with. I always say that for me, that's the money is the important factor of it. Yes, passion and all is good, but without that, I don't think this will also sustain. So yeah, I think that's those are two. I will not say but three, but those 2 points that I would love to talk about.
Nice. So how do you manage your own money? So this is a question that we ask everybody because of course it's FinCocktail. And we believe that every single person has their own path towards managing their money and no path is wrong. You have to find out whichever works for you. We'd just like to hear yours.
So part of it, what I said earlier was that from day one, it was very
Correct.
clear कि SIPs शुरू होनी है. It has always got added to, it has never got subtracted. So whatever got deducted in my first salary in 2010, वो आज भी वही है. So for me, and touchwood with Pooja and me, my wife, we are very clear on our finance bit. Every few months we sit, how much is the total, what's the corpus that you need to reach out to, we make that calculation, etc. Over a period of time, we've gone into the mode that 50-60% needs to be removed. That will straight go into SIP, and that does not come out for anything. Except if you're buying a home, I understand it's a much bigger ticket
Larger
size.
expense.
For everything else, so if you have an international holiday, it has to come out from the rest. If there is anything else you want to buy, it has to come out from the rest. This 50-60%, which so-called gets invested, is your retirement corpus. You do not touch it under any circumstance. So that's what has helped. I think over the last 15 years, everything has just gone into it. Nothing has come out. We don't intend to touch on it as well.
Nice.
And also, it's okay to have a good lifestyle, but you don't need to splurge on it. I still operate on a 5-year-old phone. That's okay. It's a OnePlus 7, which came out then. It's good enough. You don't need to change your phone every time. You don't need to spend on larger things. So I think it's not about being I wouldn't say it would be about being confused, but then it's about being you have enough.
Correct.
You have more than enough to spend. So that's where it is. We do have a financial advisor that we work with. But while he does advise, we also make sure that we have our internal discussions.
Yeah.
We keep reviewing it. We keep course correcting. Every few months when we said, Acha, theek hai, can we spike this number up further? Can we increase it? Can we change it, etc.? And I think that's the good part of it, and part of it that we enjoy as well talking about.
Yeah. I think it's very important that you said that, yes, having a financial advisor is something that is important. It can help a lot of people. But keeping a tab on it yourself, understanding, reviewing it internally is very important because finally paisa aapka hai.
Absolutely.
Advisor का पैसा नहीं है वो. No matter what's said and done, it is your retirement corpus on the line. You need to take interest in it. And I'm glad that you're doing all of this. And all of this mostly is in SIPs into mutual funds, I'm assuming?
Majorly. Because again, I wouldn't say I have too much knowledge about sitting and actually getting into the market, because then a lot of other factors come in.
100%.
So a lot of it is majorly SIPs. And I think one good factor that we feel is that we discuss it. And we have over a period realized that even with partners and spouses, that clarity is not there, that those discussions are not there. One of them knows what's happening, the other one doesn't. So I think that's the good thing. And also we are very clear that while the finances are different, so she will have a separate number that they are running it. So we'll know each other's. Correct. But then it's not about getting into each other's corpus at the whole. Yes, overall it's the same together.
Correct.
But still having it separate as well.
That's also very, very true, because being a family within partners, you don't just share your life, you share कुछ भी हो जाए बॉस, लाइफ के लिए पैसा लगता है.
Absolutely.
And when you're thinking about retirement, etc., you talk about retiring together, and those big life decisions like buying a home together, raising your kids together, educating them together, retiring together. Conversations about money have been very, very hard, and have recently started between partners. What do you do as partners in terms of, yes, you guys discuss it, which is important, but what do you do in terms of thinking about money together? Because it's very difficult, right? And it's, if both of you kind of want two different things, how would you resolve that conflict in terms of money?
See, touchwood, mostly our thoughts and our likings are all
चलो
aligned to
अच्छा
each other कि eventually क्या करना
हम्म,
है, कहाँ जाना है, कैसे करना है, etc. I think touchwood, it's been a very good space
yeah,
that both of us are majorly
yeah,
aligned,
aligned,
and we also know that those decisions are all taken together,
hmm,
and it is all keeping in mind the larger goal.
correct,
So we know कि eventually if you intend to
reach
retire
that,
at some point of time, what is the corpus that you need? It's a back calculation
yeah.
from that, and then you keep calculating. It's like a cricket match. You know what's your target. You need to
वहां
have
पे
your
पहुंचना
वो
है.
required run rate कितना चाहिए. Can you bat it faster now so that it's
Yeah,
easier towards the end, or if you ease it out and then you'll have to run faster towards the end. So I think it's a very, very similar game.
yeah,
Sitting with the advisor, we were able to come out with that eventual number,
correct.
and I said ठीक है, यहाँ
यहाँ
पहुँचना है,
पहुंचना है, देख
and
लेंगे.
and वो करना है,
Hmm,
and the faster you can do it, the better it
of
is.
course.
So yeah, that's how we keep doing it.
Nice. So one last thing before I let you go, you mentioned that घर लेना है या नहीं, etc. So do you own a house yet?
As of now, no.
Okay.
We had almost finalized something a few years back, and somehow at that moment we stopped, and this was before I moved into entrepreneurship. And now that I have moved here, um, the whole question became that I am location agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, she's also moved out of corporate now. We're trying to set up a consulting around that, and she comes from an HR background. Uh, and I think now the whole thing is that if both of us can be like location agnostic,
Yeah.
do we even need to stay in a Bombay kind of a city? So we've been in Bombay for 7 years. As I said, we'd almost finalized something a few years back. But again, it comes back to the question with the, I would say, the rates in Bombay, the kind of housing in Bombay, the kind of sizes of Bombay houses, etc. Longer term, or maybe would you want to retire in a city like Bombay, considering neither of us comes from the city? We love the city, we love everything about it. But again, that question comes in, if you are location agnostic, if you are running a business which is a lot virtual, can you be sitting anywhere in the country or the world and running out of it? So I think that's where that decision went on a hold for a few
Yeah.
years, I would say. And maybe with time, see, with the way things have turned out, you don't know where you will be in a few years, which part of the country or the world.
Very
So we
true.
said, ठीक है, we keep saving, we keep putting it in the corpus.
Yeah.
Maybe a few years later, we come back to that decision
Yeah.
and see where we eventually want to settle down in. And maybe, yeah, तब तक पैसे बनाते रहो.
I love it. Absolutely
So,
great.
so I would say it's more of a choice
Yeah.
rather than anything else.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important part. If you both of you are aligned on that,
Correct.
it works.
Yeah, and it has to work for you and your entire family, because finally घर तो family के साथ
Right.
ही बनाते हैं.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much, Sampark, for coming here and having this fabulous chat with us. I think we've all learned a lot about personal branding, and I will keep picking your brain on it offline.
So for everyone, like, share, and subscribe. I think that's very, very important. So don't forget to do that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.